Hi guys, welcome to class again today. Let me know if you can hear me now. Let me know if you can hear me now. Let me know. Let me know if you can hear me now, guys. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, guys? Okay, Lawan, thank you. Thank you, Lawan. Lawan said yes, we can hear you now. Thank you, Williams. I really hope we don't have this issue today. I really hope we don't have this issue today. Yeah, I pray and I hope that it remains like this. Welcome to class again. William, Lawan, Sarah, Mary, Samuel, welcome to class. If you guys are yet to like this video, please like it here because it helps us. It helps us if you like the video. Please like the video if you're yet to like it. Alright, so if you're yet to like it, please like the video, guys. We're going to start the class very soon. At any point in time, Lawan, please, I think you're very active and you can easily spot things. So at any point in time you think I'm not you cannot hear me again, please let me know, Lawan, so I can quickly fix my mic. All right, guys, welcome to class. Today we are going to be looking into CSS again today. We're going to be looking into CSS again today, guys. We're going to pick up from where we stopped yesterday. Thank you, Lawan. Yeah, thank you, Lawan. So we are going to pick up from where we stopped yesterday, and then today we are going to dive in deeper, and we're going to try to be quick because we are behind, guys. We missed a class, and yesterday was not a good one. So let's go straight into it. Again, what is CSS? Yesterday I briefly introduced CSS to you, and then yesterday we majored on inline CSS or inline styling, like someone in the class said, and then I showed you that I told you, and then I showed you the code as well. That inline styling is basically written like this. You have to define something, like an attribute called style, and then you write your CSS declaration inside. And yesterday we tested our code with the food menu website that we created previously, and we looked at how CSS behaved around tags and other elements. Right. So if I just bring out the output again so I can show you guys what we did yesterday for the benefit of those that were not in class, so you can quickly catch up before we move on to our slides. So this is what we did yesterday, and we looked at how CSS behave around HTML tags, different HTML tags, and how we also use the division box as well. The division tag, or it is not a box, it is a tag, division tag as well. So today we're just going to go into CSS proper, and then I think it's going to really help us to work with the theory and do more of the practical, so you have a better understanding of things. So again, what is CSS? CSS simply means cascading style sheet, and then it is used to style the pages of websites. So it can be maybe HTML document or XML. You don't really have to worry about XML. Eventually, when you start doing things, you know what that is all about. But focus on HTML and CSS for now. All right. So HTML means cascading style sheet, and then it is the language that is used to style the website. Create a structure for websites. Basically, it would allow you, to control the layout of your website and the total and entire appearance of your website page, or maybe multiple pages at once. And previously in this class, we have talked about how the benefit. No, we've not really talked about the benefit of CSS. So perhaps maybe it's good to look into it as well. CSS have different advantages. From what I said earlier in the previous slide, it would help you create layouts around, around your HTML structure, or around the whole element, or on your website. And CSS is used for presentation. So to say, CSS is used for presentation, or CSS is used to create layouts. There's another language called JavaScript. Many of you may be familiar with it already. JavaScript is basically for behavior. Let's say you have a button around your website, and you want that maybe when people click that button, it will jump up and then jump down and roll around and do different kind of stunt or something. People use JavaScript to do things like that. So while HTML is for structure, CSS is for layout, and then JavaScript is for manipulating the layout to behave a certain way. And then, another benefit of CSS is, like, it would help you to create, that consistency around your website. And then this is good for businesses when you're, like, branding your website. You want to use the same color all through your website pages. You want to use the same font. You want to use the same type of font. Yeah, you want to use the same font. You want to use the same size of font. And things like that. So CSS allow you to do things like that. And then again, CSS is good for easy maintenance. But the truth is, I can't. There's no other language that you would use for for creating layouts around websites. I don't think there's any other language that majors in creating appearance, or optimizing the appearance of your website, or the layout of your website. I don't think there's any other language out there, unless I'm wrong. Um, yeah, but unlike JavaScript, you can use other languages like maybe PHP, or Python, or several other programming language can be used to create a behavior for the elements around your website. But this is why CSS is unique, and it's almost like a standalone language. All right, so how do we write CSS? Yesterday I briefly introduced you to the structure of CSS. And then basically the structure of CSS is called syntax. So if you remember when we were talking about HTML, I said HTML, we talked about HTML boilerplate, we talked about HTML tags. So, like when you say HTML tags, but in CSS, instead of tags, you say, maybe syntax structure. And the syntax structure, it just looked like this. Yesterday, briefly, we did something briefly. We looked at internal CSS yesterday. So it is good that we did a lot of practical yesterday, and today, we are going to do a little bit of theory and more practical to make everything make sense. So yesterday with internal CSS, we briefly touched the structure of HTML. Sorry, of CSS, not HTML. And if you look at this slide that I have right here, you see that position. Yesterday, if you can remember, yesterday I said you can either style HTML tag directly, or you can create a class that you would use as an attribute for different HTML tags or different HTML elements. So, right, if we look at our example from yesterday, where we use this background color, where we define the background color for this table. So this table in this case is going to be the selector. In this case, this table is going to be the selector. So this here is the selector, and as you can see, Visual Studio Code have a good way of telling you what it is. You can see selector. It is written there, selector, and then it is showing you the table tag as well. And this right here is the property. This right here is the property, and this is the value. Both of them together, both this property and the value together, is called a CSS declaration. So yesterday you might have, you would probably hear me talk about CSS declaration a lot, and this is together they are called CSS declaration. This alone is called CSS selector, And the selector there are different type of selectors, and I'm going to introduce you to more selectors today. But as at yesterday, we looked at the tag selector, and then we also looked at creating a class selector. So we looked at tag selector yesterday, and we looked at class selector. But today I'm going to introduce you to other type of selectors that we have, like ID selector and another one. But now this is called a CSS property. Sorry, this is called a CSS selector. This is called a CSS property, and this is a CSS value. Together, the value and the property is called a CSS declaration. So that is the theory for our example or the practicals that we did yesterday. And then selectors are basically, they target HTML elements. Again, guys, HTML elements, we're looking at the HTML elements, we're talking about HTML tags. So everything that starts from the opening tag to the closing tag is it's an HTML element. Welcome to class, Abraham. Welcome to class, Aisha. It's nice to see you guys again today. Welcome to class. All right. So CSS property, again, you know what CSS property is. I've just explained to you. It is an attribute of the selected element, and then you know what CSS value is as well. So again, this is an example, but I've just shown you with the code that we used that we created yesterday. So I've just shown you an example. I explained which one is the value, which one is the property, and together they are called declarations. Right. So more into the type of selectors that we have. So yesterday I showed you the tag selector, and then we looked at the class selector. But today we're going to look at ID selector and attribute selector. However, I will do a quick no, I don't need to do a quick summary of type selector and class selector because we looked at that yesterday. Welcome to class Igwe, Faith. It's nice to have you in class. Um, right. So ID selector then, how do we write ID selectors? I would like us to, as we are as we are looking at the theories, I want us to be touching the practicals as well. So everything just makes sense and you're not just seeing notes. That way it is easier to learn. So we looked at the tag selector yesterday, and that is the first one that you see on top of this note here. And then basically it just targets HTML elements. So basically selectors are used to target HTML elements. You can target using the tag itself. So like H1 or paragraph tag that we have used a lot in this class. And then we can define a class. And if you remember from yesterday's code, I told you that for you to create a CSS class, you need to start with dot. So dot, whatever your CSS class name is going to be, dot, whatever your CSS class name is going to be. And yesterday we created a CSS class called Tobi, and I think we created another one called Linda yesterday. Between Linda is not in class today, but I hope she's going to watch this video later on and catch up. All right. So that's all about CSS class and creating a selector using CSS class or tag. So let's look at ID. How do we use the ID selector? Okay, so for you to use the ID selector, right? So for the other type of selectors, I'm just going to tell you that quickly. So we move to the second slide. Um, the first one that I'm going to introduce you today is called ID selector. We're going to look at how to write that, and the second one is attribute selector. So this is what they look like. The first one that you can see here with the p tag, that is the tag selector, the one that we did yesterday. And then the one with the dots is the class selector. We did that yesterday as well. So the ID selector is written this way. This is how you write the ID selector, and you put the hashtag hash sign there, and then you put the name of the tag or maybe the name of the class of the or you create an ID name. No, sorry, that is wrong. So ID would always be the same. ID is not a tag or class. ID is an ID. So you can only have one ID, similar to kind of like similar to the way you have one H1 in HTML. So you can only have one ID. So ID is an ID. ID is not a class. It is not a tag. It is just an identification, and it is only that one that will be in your code. Right. So you can use ID selector, and the other one is attribute selector. And a good example is this input. We have not looked into HTML forms. I think we skipped that one because it's not really important. But I can give you a video where you can learn more about HTML forms. Maybe by the end of this program, it's going to help you as well because you would eventually be creating forms. But with HTML forms, they can have input. They can have input as an attribute, and then you can style the specific attributes of your code as well. So there you go, guys. You can style the tag, and then, for example, here we have the p tag. You can create a class. Again, you start with dots, and then you come up with any random name at all for your class, and then you can use ID. You have to write hash and then any random name again for your ID, or you can style the attribute. You may not do this one a lot. You may not do the attribute one a lot, but you see those first three, the tag, and then the class and the ID. You are more likely to do them every now and then throughout your web development career. All right, so let's look at how to use ID then. Let's do a little bit of practice. So again, to write ID, you put hash sign. If I can find hash sign on my keyboard. All right, don't buy keyboard from Wish, guys. All right, so you put your hash sign, and then you come up with a name for your ID. So let me use Tobi again so I can explain something to you guys. And then to write CSS declaration, guys, you need to have your open curly brace and closing curly braces. Right, so let's put a declaration in there. So let's say maybe I like to use background color because it's always a good one. So let's use this background color property again. And then this time around, let's find a different color, maybe that color. Right, so if you notice now, we have two CSS selectors with the name Tobi, but one is a class because it has dot, and then the other one is an ID because it has this hash sign. So let's use that ID in our CSS element, and let us look at how we use it. So let's create let's create another div tag or another division element. Again, guys, you're going to use division a lot throughout your career because that is what you use to divide the website or create structures around the website. So to write ID, it is similar to the way you write class. It is just like an attribute again. But in this time around, instead of you to write class, you write ID equals to, and then the name of your ID. So I think the name of our ID over there is Tobi. So what's the difference now? We have a class called Tobi. We have an ID called Tobi. How does the computer know the difference? Basically, it is very simple and straightforward. One is a class. The computer is going to interpret it as a class. The other one is an ID. The computer is going to interpret it as an ID. So although it is the same name, they are different. And I'm going to show you in a minute. We're going to see the output in a minute. Right. So this is the ID box. I wrote that in our element. Let's scroll back and then let's just make sure we understand what is happening in our CSS declaration. So the CSS declaration with the class that has a brown, that one have a brown color, and then the one with an ID have this blue violet color. So let's go to our output as usual, and let us see what we have. So if I refresh, and then there we go. So this is the box. This is the one that is a class. You can see it still remain brown. It did not change to this blue violet. And then this is Okay, ignore this code, guys. This code is outside HTML. It is outside the closing HTML tag. That is why it is coming up like that. So please ignore it. It's not broken. So, however, as to what we were saying, this is the ID, and as you can see, although they have the same name, the computer is interpreting them in different ways because one is an ID and then the other one is a class, so they are not the same. So that's it, guys. That's the difference between ID and then and class, and how you can actually write ID and class. Let's go to the next thing on the slide. I'm not going to talk about we're not going to look into input selector today because we don't have an element. We can create something quickly, but it's a waste of time because you won't be using it a lot anyway. So let's go into the next thing. By the end of the class, you would understand how to use input regardless, and I'm going to send you a video on creating HTML forms so you understand how to use that attribute. So earlier on in this program or in this course so far, I introduced something to you called the box model. And if you can remember, I told you basically it is like a set of like boxes. If you think of a website, when you want to create a website, it's good to think of it like a set of box, like a set of box. So there is a big box, and then there are several other boxes inside. Every single layout of your website, it's just think of it as a box. So it is basically creating website. When it comes to development, web development is more or less like putting boxes in boxes. So the more box you can put in box, uh, that is a website box. It is just a box. So basically, but then these boxes you can format them, or you can optimize them in a way that you make it show the way you want it to show, and that is where CSS properties um, like margin and border padding come into play, and several other CSS properties. This is where they come into play. So you can have a box, but then inside that box, let's say you want to have your paragraph tag and you want to write some sentence in there, but maybe you want it to shift to the left, or you want it to shift to the right, or you want a lot of space on top or at the bottom. So this is where CSS properties come to play. So the box module is not entirely new to you. You get the concept now. It is just boxes in boxes, because I used the example of Lagos based websites to show you how you put boxes in boxes. And when we were talking about HTML boilerplate as well, I showed you an example of the code, the actual code itself, how it is like boxes in boxes. So I've been able to show you the code, how it is in boxes, and then I showed you the Lagos based website as an example, um, as an output example of what the box model is like. So that is basically what this slide is saying. And the next thing to talk about is CSS positioning. So this CSS positioning, they are basically a set of CSS they're a set of CSS properties, and then um, they are used to position the boxes around the website. So if you go on some websites, let me see if I have a good example for you. If you go on some websites, you notice like when you scroll down on some websites, the menu of the website is going to scroll down with you, and then as you're scrolling down, the menu is scrolling down with you. Let me see if I can get a good example. And as you're scrolling down, it's scrolling down with you. For them to do something like that, they've used, okay, so Lagos base is a good example because Lagos base have that. So right, so this is Lagos based, and this is what I'm trying to say. If I scroll down on this website now, you notice that this menu on top is staying right in the position, and then it is just moving with me as I scroll down. So this is where the CSS positioning property, this is where it comes to play. If we go back into our slide, right. So that behavior, or what you see right there, it is possible with fixed position. property. It is possible with fixed property, CSS property. So basically, when you define that property to an HTML element, it is going to make your HTML elements remain in the same position, and as the user scrolls, it will scroll with them along through the website. And people mostly use that fixed position these days for the navigation bar or the menu bar, as some other people may call it. So there are different type of CSS position. There's static, there's relative, there's absolute, there's fixed, there's sticky. Fixed and sticky almost behave the same way. You can almost say they are the same. Um, but however, as you can see on this slide, sticky is the one that really behaves based on how the user scrolls, while fixed is the one that is relative to the browser window. And then with sticky, you can do more things with sticky than fixed, but they almost behave the same way, really. Right. So as we move along, we're going to do the code practice, but let's keep talking about the theory. Okay, so this is an example of how you write those properties. This position, sorry, their values in this case now they are not properties, they are values. Uh, excuse me, guys, they are values. So these things are this static, relative, absolute, fixed are values, but then the actual property is position. So you write your CSS declaration this way. You write position. Position is, basically think of it as a keyword. It cannot change. It always have to remain the same. So your CSS property is position, and then your value, the values that you can enter for this CSS property called position are the ones that we have listed here. So your CSS position property can either be static, it can be relative, it can be absolute, it can be fixed or sticky. And we are going to, as we move along in this class, we are going to look at it. You know what? Let's do something. Let's do a little bit of practice, because it's good to do practice as we move along, so we don't have to you know go back into things because we don't have time anyway. All right. So let's just write a quick code. Let's write a quick code, and I would like us to use that. I would like us to use that fixed property. Okay, so which one would be a good one? Okay, so we are going to apply fixed property to this element, this one right here, and we are going to put the fixed property in that class called Tobi, the one that we declared earlier. But for this to work properly, or better still, you know what? Let us create a new element that is almost going to be like our navigation bar in this case. And I want let's use anchor tag as well. Href. All right. I think this is a better way to learn. So we just do it like we're creating a website, and that is the navigation bar. Although we're going to eventually create our proper website when we are done with Bootstrap. Tomorrow we're going to move into Bootstrap tomorrow, guys. Hopefully we can finish this CSS today. So tomorrow we're going to talk about something called Flexbox before Bootstrap anyway. But as soon as we finish Flexbox, we're going to move into Bootstrap. And Bootstrap is very easy to learn, guys. It's just basically knowing you need to understand CSS before you go into Bootstrap. So as soon as you know CSS, you know where the declarations are and everything, you will be able to write a Bootstrap code. So if you notice we have this CSS Tobi in there, so maybe we have to create a new class. So we don't use the same class, and it would affect, because if we use the same class in here, whatever we declare again in that new CSS class, in the same CSS class called Tobi, is going to affect the other elements down there. So let's create a new class for this one, and maybe let's call this new class let's call it navigation. Let's call it Navi. Let's call this new CSS class Navi, or better still Nav. This new CSS class is called Nav. And then let's go into our CSS inline. We are still, this is internal CSS, guys. We've not talked about external yet, but before today's class end, I will introduce you to external CSS. Okay, so our new CSS class is called Nav, and then curly braces open and close, guys. And then let's give it a background color as well. I like to use background color because I like to use background color property because it makes things pop. And then this time around as well, I want a color. So color is another CSS property, guys. I'm going to send you a list of the several CSS properties that we have, and it is impossible for you to become a web developer within 2 weeks. I'm not going to lie to you, but this program is really going to speed you up, because now you know what properties are, you know how to write the code, and even if you want to continue online to learn yourself, or maybe mentorship with me after the program ends, you know, we are still there to support you because we're going to be a community. It's going to be easier for you to learn essentially. But everything that I'm teaching you now is going to speed you up. It's going to speed up your learning process, and everything that look like magic, would become clear. So let's have that color as white. White is just FFF. I think you got, yeah. White is FFF. There we go. And this again is just color code. So you can either write white or you can write the color code in there. Right, so let's go to our output. We did not talk about HTML color codes because we did not have the time to. Did I save it? Or something is broken. Okay, there we go. All right. So our anchor tag is still having that color, but that is not the color we want it to have. So why is it behaving like that? Even though we have right, it's very simple. Okay. So if that happens, you can do something like this. All right, so guys, what I just did there is that this anchor tag, let me just say it is a stubborn one. This anchor tag it's more or less like a stubborn one, but not really, because code is code. So anchor tag by default would always come with the color blue. It would always come with color blue. So although I defined a class in here, and every CSS declaration that I give to this class is supposed to affect the elements within it. But anchor tag again have a default color of its own. So a good way to kind of like maybe troubleshoot that is to call the class, which is .nav, and then you want to say um, the a tag or the anchor tag element within .nav, you want it to have a white color, and that is what we can see in the output here. So this anchor tag within .nav is, or .nav, which is the CSS class anyway, is having a white color. But that is not what we want to do. What we want to look at is CSS positioning, or CSS position. So if we go back into that code, okay, and then inside our nav class, let's put the position property there, and we want to say the position is fixed. We want the position to be fixed. So let's save that. Let's go to our output and see the way that behaves. Maybe it's going to behave like that Lagos-based website. All right. So what you notice now is that although it is broken to the side, every other thing that is there has moved away. There's a way to fix that. That is how CSS behave. So if you change the position, some things may change around your website, but this is something you learn as you go on how to fix things like that. So basically, majorly it may happen like that because of the way I did the HTML structure anyway. But this is a rough website, so don't worry about it's cutting in half. But this is what I want to show you essentially. So if I scroll now, you notice that my my button, oh sorry, my navigation bar is scrolling with me. But it is not scrolling to the bottom now because that is where my scrolling thing ends. Yeah, right here. That is where it ends, so it cannot go down further. But if I go up, it is moving with me. So that is it, guys. That is basically what the fixed position would do. And then maybe if we change it now, and then maybe let's make it relative. And let's see the way that one behaves as well. And then if I refresh, if you notice it is on the same position, it's not moving. It's on the same position. It would be relative to the element that is around it, or it is sitting within, or that is around it. And let's use another one called absolute. This absolute is not people don't really use it for navigation bar, but they may use it for like images around the website. You go to some websites and then you notice that maybe there's like maybe a image that looks like it is popping out. I'm not sure if I have an example for you now, but let's just keep going. All right. So absolute again is not moving, it stays on the same position. Let us try sticky, and then maybe we can see the difference between sticky and um and fixed. So this will be the last one, guys, because I think we need to move on. We still have more things on the slide to talk about. So if I refresh, and there you go, sticky stays on the same line. So with sticky, if you can remember earlier on, I said with sticky, it is it is a little bit more complicated as to how you use it. It's not straightforward as that. But if you want that behavior whereby the navigation bar would scroll, fixed is always a easy one to use, most especially for you that is starting out. All right. So let's just leave it back as fixed. It is on there like that. So let's go back to our slide. So we've looked at those CSS positions. Okay, so we've actually come to the end of the class, guys, and this is really good. I'm glad that we're able to touch many things. But don't go yet. Don't go yet because we have not talked about internal CSS. I'm sorry. I thought we've talked about it in the previous class. We were supposed to talk about it in the previous class. Because in the next class we are going to move into CSS Flexbox and then introduction to Bootstrap. Bootstrap, trust me, guys, Bootstrap is the killer, and CSS Flexbox as well is the killer. So with these two concepts that I'm going to introduce you to from next class, we are going to start creating our full-blown website. So we are probably going to create a restaurant website before this program ends, and then this is where you just have to like code along with me as I code, just code along with me as I code. And then feel free to ask. I will keep explaining, but you ask questions in the comment section. If you have a bug, drop it in the comment section in the next class, and then we are going to resolve it immediately. So basically from the next class we are going to start building a full-blown website with Flexbox and Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is going to be the class after Flexbox anyway, but from next class we're going to introduce you to the proper CSS structure of website. Right, so let us talk about external CSS today before we finish the class, because it is important that you know external CSS. Um, right. So we 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 looked at internal CSS. We looked at inline CSS or inline styling. So inline styling or inline CSS is basically this one that you write within you write like an attribute within your HTML tag, and then internal CSS is the one that lives within the head tag. And to write internal CSS again, you have to define your class sorry, your style tag, in this case, and then the the element, you can target the elements directly. I don't know why this one is there, probably a mistake. You can target the tag directly, or you can create a class. And today I introduce you to the ID as well, or you can use an ID. So you can use ID, you can use class, or you target the elements tag directly. Right, so that is inline, and then that is internal. So what about what about external CSS then? How do we write external CSS? How do we write external CSS? Because this is where things start to get a little bit more complicated. A bit, just a bit anyway, guys. Not really. Okay, so to write external CSS, you're going to need something in the head tag. You're going to need something in the head tag. And then first off, we are going to create a new file to write external CSS, because external CSS is basically a new file. So let us create a new file. Let us create a new file. And most of the time you notice that you can give your file any name, but just like similar to the way we create HTML file where we have index.html, with CSS, it's always have to end with .css. So CSS file extension is called .css, HTML file extension is called .html. And the file extensions again, guys, is similar to .mp4, .mp3, .jpeg, .png, and so on and so forth. So right, so for CSS then, let us call this. So this file that I'm creating right now is called a style sheet. So when you hear people say style sheet, this is what they mean. Any CSS file is called a style sheet. So let us create a new style sheet and let us call that our style sheet. Let us call it style. So now I've written style and then I have to end with .css. .cdd, .css. And if you notice immediately, Visual Studio Code changed the icon, and Visual Studio Code immediately recognized that file as a CSS file. Okay, so what would be interesting to do right now is to take all of our, let us take all of our internal CSS. Let us cut it away. Let us take it away from the code. Let us cut all of this internal CSS away. Yeah, and then I think this would quickly make you understand what external CSS is. So let us paste everything inside the style.css file. So we copied all of our internal CSS that is sitting within the head. We copied it into style.css file. So let us save it. We save the style.css file, and then we also save the index.html without the style CSS in there. All right. So the next thing I would like us to do now is to go to our output as usual and just see how, and then we can see how that works. Let us see what is going to break in our output. So if I refresh the output right now, guys, you notice that several colors and the style that we have for the um, for the menu is gone, but this one is left. However, this one we have this one there because, does anyone know why we have this one there? Let me know if anyone is following. Um, Someone tell me in the comment section, why do you think we still have this color in the table? Why do you think we still have this color in the table? Anyone, any random person at all? Why do you think we still have this color in the table? So I'm not going to say why. I'm going to hope that someone will tell me why we have it in the why we still have that color in the table. But let's move on while we wait for someone to comment. Right. So you notice all of the colors are gone, and that is basically because we removed them. Yeah, so Sarah said inline styling. Bless you, Sarah. That's correct. That's correct, Sarah. Inline styling. So inline styling, yes, that's correct as well, Mary. Thank you. You guys have been following. You're fast, you're sharp. So yeah, so we still have the inline CSS in the table tag. We did not remove that one, so that one is still there, and that is basically why it is showing. So we removed our internal CSS. We removed everything there, and all of the CSS declarations that we have earlier is gone. So how do we bring it back then? We can bring it back with this new file that we've created now, this style.css file, which is an external CSS. All right. So to define or to bring external CSS into your HTML document, uh, what you need to do is you need to declare a tag called link, just like that. It does not have a open tag or closing tag, but however, there are attributes inside. And the first attribute is called real. And then this real now is going to be equals to style sheet. And then there's another attribute again called href. And then we used href before in this class, guys. Um, we used href for in the anchor tag to basically link the text to the page, to basically link any text to the page. So in this case, there we go. The anchor tag href, we're using it to link this text home. We can use it to link it somewhere around the website. But similar to how you can do that with this link style sheet, you can use with this link tag, you can use it to call external CSS file your into your HTML document. So how do you do that? You write it like this first, and then you have to input the name of the file into this href. So again, one important thing for you to note, where yeah, we're going to talk about folder paths and then folder structures. Maybe as we go, as we start building the proper website, we're going to touch that one. But there's no time to go into full details. It's very simple and basic. You understand immediately I talk about it. But however, you want to make sure your files are in the same folder. So all your files need to be inside this menu website that we've been using as the example. And then it is not like maybe um, you now create another folder. Let's say maybe you create another folder now, and then you call that folder CSS, and then you now put this style inside the CSS folder. No, it shouldn't be like that. It should not be like that. For the purpose of this training so far, all you just have to do is to put them into one folder. And as we move along, I'm going to show you how to structure your folders as well. But for the purpose of this training right now, just input everything into one folder. So all we need to do right here is to just put the name of our style sheet there. And as you can see again, Visual Studio Code is doing a good job of suggesting to us. So you don't need to type fully, just click, and there we go. Style.css is the name of our CSS file, which we see right here. So let's save that. Remember, guys, we remove all of the internal CSS, internal declaration. We removed all of that away, or internal CSS. We removed all of that, and our website broke. If we go back to the output again, this is what we had earlier. But if we refresh now, you notice everything is back. So basically, that is what external CSS does. That is what external CSS does. It is another way of writing CSS. So instead of writing CSS maybe inline, you can write it internal, which is going to be in the head tag, or you can write it external, which is going to be in its own standalone file. So when you're writing CSS in an external file, unlike when you write internal CSS, when you write internal CSS in the head tag, you need to use the style tag. But when you're writing an external file, you don't need to write the style tag. All you just do is immediately start with your CSS selector, and then the properties and the values and everything. Write all of your CSS declarations. As long as you link it this way, it is going to work. So there you go, guys. That is that about external and internal. Another thing that I think I want to talk about before we end this class Another thing I think I want to talk about before we end this class is that I talked about it briefly earlier, is the priority of this CSS. There's like a priority to it because it's a cascading style sheet. So inline CSS would always have priority. I showed you an example in the previous class whereby we use the same um, we we created a CSS declaration for the same HTML element or HTML tag. But then the inline one is the one that was working. So basically, inline would always have priority. Whatever you define inline would work before any other declaration, maybe in the internal or in the external CSS. So the priority goes this way: inline and then internal and then external. So if you the one that would work first if you define the same declaration or different declaration for the same element would be internal and then would be inline and then internal and then external. So that is the priority, guys. So that's it, guys. Because this class is a live class, for the next 5 minutes, for the next 5 minutes, yeah, if you have any questions, put it in the comment section right now. Feel free to ask your questions. I'm happy that we were able to cover all of this slide. Tomorrow we're going to go into Flexbox and then I'll briefly introduce you to Bootstrap as well. So ask your questions in the comment section now, guys. For the next 3 5 minutes, ask your questions. Let me see if I can answer your questions before we end the class. So I'm watching, guys. Yeah, what are your questions? What questions do you have? Ask your questions, guys. Are you happy with the class so far? Is there something you're struggling with? Is there a question about today's class? Is there something I said today that you don't understand? You'd like me to explain better? Let me know, guys. Let me know in the comment section. Is there anything you want to know? Don't forget to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. So don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is important for us. It helps us as well. So let me know, guys. Ask your questions in the comment section. If not, I think we've come to the end of the class for today, and then we can continue tomorrow again. Question, guys. Questions. Can you guys still hear me? Can you guys still hear me at least if you don't have any question? I just need somebody to say yes. Lawan, anybody at all? Thank you for the class, Ira said. Okay. All right, someone is asking a question. As per priority, can we also call it hierarchy? Well, yes, you can call it hierarchy. Hierarchy, yes. No, but you saying visual hierarchy or saying hierarchy is just a good way to confuse people. In this class, I believe like majority of the people in this class is like you know newbies, people who don't really know much. So you want to break those words down for them. So all good, Lawan said. Thank you, Lawan. Yes, we can hear you, Williams. Thank you. Mary says thank you as well, Mary. All right, guys, that's the we come to the end of the class for today, and then I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye, guys. No, there's no takeaway tax for today. It's all good. Tomorrow we're just going to dive in into Flexbox and CSS, and we start looking at CSS structures. All right, thank you, guys. I hope you have a good evening. Bye.